My name is Rob Bean, and I'm a partner and marketing strategist with Refactored, and I'm going to be facilitating today's presentation. First, I really want to thank you for attending our webinar on how to drive targeted traffic with content pillars. And I really hope that you'll find the content impactful and useful to improving your website marketing strategy. Now, as you're going to hear, this is a very practical technique that's designed to service customer buying behavior, and it's not a method to game Google or to deliver keyword stuffed pages. So to create effective content pillars, it's really important to strike the right balance of customer input, SEO keyword research, and strong brand copywriting. The best pillars will not only deepen your brand story on your website, but will pay dividends by helping you lower the cost of acquisition, all while providing prospective customers relevant information and answers to the questions that only you can uniquely address. Before we get started, I do have a few quick housekeeping items I would like to go through. So first, this presentation is being recorded this morning, and you'll be provided a link to that recording later this week. Secondly, a link to our companion ebook on this topic will also be provided. And together, these two resources will allow you to share this technique with your colleagues and maybe discuss potentially doing a project like this moving forward. We're also offering a free SEO audit to all the attendees on this webinar to help you identify potential content pillar opportunities, but there'll be more on that later on. Finally, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them in the chat window, and we'll either answer them as we go along where they fit, or otherwise we'll cover those at the end. So again, thank you again for your attendance today. So before we jump in, let me just give you a little quick background about Refactored. So we are a full-service digital agency, and we help organizations navigate the complexities of modern marketing. We do this by aligning people, process, and technology. Now, we provide a full range of solutions from branding, messaging, and copy development to full digital marketing programs that include SEO, SEM, and complete digital campaigns. However, because the web is the hub of most business conversion and customer utility, we specialize in web design and development that effectively engages stakeholders while enriching and improving their customer experience, always with a focus on generating the results that matter to you. So we believe in great communication, excellent customer experience, and high performance results. And we have a long history of providing effective marketing and technology solutions to B2B companies, associations, and nonprofits. Now on with the presentation. So today we're going to talk about all aspects of content pillars, from how to define them to effectively producing them, and we'll even share a case study on a particular one that we had put together. But first, let's talk about why they're needed today. So as you're likely aware, garnering attention online and driving quality traffic to your website is one of the biggest challenges sales and marketing professionals of all types face. As modern buyers have shifted their focus online, prospective customers prefer more and more to self-educate when considering a purchase. Instead of talking to sales or customer service folks, they're first performing deep dive research into their own questions. They are defining their issues using the terms that they want to choose, not necessarily things that are in our vernacular. And they're exploring potential solutions that demonstrate that you can meet their requirements. And so really understanding what those requirements are can be very important to making sure you're meeting those needs. And finally, they're doing a lot of comparison. Amazon has trained all of us to be really good comparison shoppers, and that has been taken into every other kind of transaction that's out there, whether that be B2B or association or a nonprofit membership. Again, all of this is happening before they ever interact with a salesperson or representative from your organization. So how many opportunities are you missing simply because you don't have the right content on your website to attract visitors naturally? And how much extra are you spending in paid media resources for terms and concepts that you don't have strong background content support for on your website? So it's time to consider developing a center of gravity to pull searchers to your site. Content pillars create a natural, organic draw for users who's searching for defined keywords and brand terms. Because their content keyword, because the content and keyword is very dense, they amplify the SEO gravity of your site, increasing organic traffic to your site. Then the return on that initial effort compounds, and it manifests in recurring savings that multiply year after year as your increased organic traffic reduces and replaces the need for paid traffic. Now, content pillars, along with continued SEO optimization efforts, often can grow your organic traffic at 20 to 40% a year. So, content pillars are a cost effective tactic with potential for tremendous returns. Now, with properly structured content pillars, you can certainly expect great results. So let's give you a few examples of some of the things that you might expect to see. One is traffic growth, and that's both organic and paid, because anytime you improve your organic traction and focus time on looking at the proper keywords, all that information can be turned to your paid team as well, and they can also share and leverage that same information. You'll see better click through and conversion rates on your site because you're going to be getting people to your site that are more relevant to the services that you're providing, and you're providing that more detailed those answers to their questions. You'll see savings on paid search because you'll be getting more organic traffic. You won't have to spend on certain types of terms, or you can focus your paid resources in other areas because you're covering that base. You're going to see keyword ranking growth. And this is just where your brand is associated with more keywords more often. And so your ranking growth is going to both move higher in search engine results, but it'll also grow broader. You'll also lift your engagement metrics because you're providing content that's designed to be more engaging than what you have today, and so that's something that's going to improve as well. Your overall domain authority is going to increase, and your increased SERP ranking. And finally, with continual improvement and fine tuning, you're gonna see that you can take some initial steps, make them really come to life, and then you can hone those things in over time, expand pillars to answer new questions, and so forth. So there's a lot of great things that you can expect from maintaining a really strong pillar set. So let's dig into a little bit about what a content pillar is. So first, a content pillar is a topical set of website pages that are designed to tell a powerful and connected story. They're focused around a targeted group of conceptual keywords that we call a cluster. Because Google prefers rich content, each content pillar is generally about 8 to 10 pages with about 800 to 1500 words per page. And each page includes a mix of media, including text, links, images, and videos. Now, a content pillar is typically focused around a cluster of 8 to 10 primary keywords, but it's also supported by 10 to 15 related secondary keywords across each of those pages. Now, this arrangement tells Google that you're speaking with authority and that you have deep knowledge about your topic. This is not designed to be content or keyword stuffing. And it tells your site visitor that they're really in the right place to quickly learn what they need to know. This is really all about quality. And so that may be the first thing you're asking yourself, what makes a content pillar really work? Well, I'll say it again. It's simply put, it's quality. In a nutshell, content pillars provide high quality information that isn't available anywhere else. It includes content that is relevant to the questions that the potential customer most want answered, and they are strategically planned and highly structured to provide customers and search algorithms exactly what they're looking for at every step. And by delivering the visitor content that exceeds their expectations, you make a strong brand impression while covering your bases with links to supporting material. You also ensure that through research and the application of SEO best practices, that your content has the best chance of being remembered by the search engines. And as our SEO partners will attest, creating a content pillar is one of the most powerful strategic SEO tactics that you can do. You're essentially designing a custom recipe for your ultimate success based on your predetermined goals. So, when are content pillars the right choice? Well, I'd say anytime you'd like to lower the cost of conversion or drive more traffic. And who doesn't want to do that? We often implement one or more, or we often implement content pillars for one or the following reasons. One, when you're building a new website, depending on the industry that you're in, you may find that actually focusing on those, not just what your organization does for your community, how you're actually communicating that out, but also looking for some of these areas where there's a lot of traffic around concerns you know a lot about. So building that into your website plan beyond the normal content. Secondly, is supercharging an existing website. You may have a high-performing site today, but you're maybe lacking some certain set of keywords, or you've got information that you'd like to add just additional power to. You can supercharge an existing website. In fact, our example is going to go into this. If you have a specific sales goal you're trying to reach, or if you're trying to respond to regulatory change, that's another really great opportunity to build new content in your site. One is it's going to support, say, a sales goal campaign, or in case of a regulatory change, you might be able to respond and create content that really speaks to that specific effort that people might be searching on. But that's going to pay, again, dividends over time. If you're striving to grow rapidly, and again, another really important time to be looking at your keyword mix and making sure that that content exists on your site. And finally, responding to keyword loss, which is exactly what we were doing in the case study that we're going to share later in this presentation. So let's talk a little bit about how content pillars work. Now, in this section, we're going to dig into how content pillars impact search results in your favor. So Google's algorithm is designed to identify a searcher's intent and to provide the most relevant results. And we all know that. But there's a lot that goes into how that algorithm actually works. And they're changing this all the time, which kind of makes it a moving target. But that's also one of the reasons to think about making sure that you're creating content for people, not for the search engine. So again, a lot goes into how the algorithm works, but one key concept to understand is that the words searchers enter into the search engine need to exist in the content on your website. It sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people have a complete disconnect. They're like, well, this is what our company does. Surely we should get traffic for that. And it's like, well, if you don't have content for it, it's just not going to work. So, by having those proper words on your site, it's going to allow your company's page to be found through search. Now, in this first example that I have up on screen, as for a search engine result, and we're going to use the term that is used to improve process control in the manufacturing industry. And we're searching the term, what is SPC? And in this case, you'll see a lot of organic matches to this question, along with some variants to the original question as well that Google helps us out with. And you'll also notice there's one brand that's performing better than most in the searches because they're answering the questions in a way that helps the user and Google simultaneously. But we'll get into more on that later. So on the face of it, the concept is simple. However, given the competition for high-value keywords and phrases, it's important to write and construct web pages that aren't just stuffed with keywords. Google has become really savvy enough to recognize those and weed them out. Instead, your content needs to be written and organized to be attractive to the way Google crawls and identifies high quality content, and written to be useful for your website visitors. When you meet Google's criteria, it showcases your brand in search engine results, or what's called SERPs, in a variety of different ways. And we're seeing a number of these SERPs in this screenshot here. So there's direct answer boxes, which are some of the things we're seeing here. This is an organic search result here for the company directly. Um, so, there's paragraph snippets, there's lists of content, there's tabular content, YouTube videos. There's about 8 or 9, actually closer to 12 of these that we can essentially target and make sure that we are getting the most amount of real estate available. So in this second example of a search engine result, we've used a phrase about a specific technique and outcome in the security industry by searching the term, what are the best practices for data loss prevention? And in this case, you're going to see, again, a lot of organic matches to the question, along with variants of the original question, and even some paid search ads. Notice that all the top results link back to key players in this space. Now put yourself in the shoes of a prospective buyer. Who are you going to call after a dozen or so searches on a topic that's answered with clarity by a single source that can also help you with these services? Chances are it's going to be the person that is putting the content out there. So the better you are at answering the common questions that prospects will search for when they're in that discovery mode, the more your website will naturally build gravity, increase organic traffic. So as our content strategist here at Refactored notes, great SEO requires content that's just not about your company, but it's also very relevant to the searcher. Content pillars help to provide that relevance. Although they're designed and built using a keyword strategy, they're written for people and focused on getting people the information they're actually searching for. So when we're developing a content pillar for a customer of ours, we focus on delivering great value to that prospect to build trust quickly. And then we want to convert that interest with engaging resources, which could be videos, images, quotes, other assets and resources, downloadable content. And we're looking for content or other engagements that's really going to drive a positive action in your world. So in this next section, we're going to get into the how we structure and create an effective content pillar. So how do we go about creating that pillar? Well, first, we must find potential and powerful keyword clusters. And to do that, we need to reverse engineer our goals. While doing that work, you'll need to consider the common questions, learning styles, and methods of educating prospects. Now, they're also supported by the search engines. So again, we are always looking for that balance. So what's the process? So our process for adding a content pillar to a website starts with a short period of research and strategy, followed by content development and SEO optimization. It really falls in the pattern of search, optimization, strategy, content development, and deployment. So let's step through each of these phases. So in the research phase, we're going to start by talking, about your reasons for adding this content to your site. And it's important to determine what you want your website to do for you. So we start with some questions about what the terms your searchers are going to want to find. So could be things like, what keywords is in your SEO plan that you don't rank for today? What information can you provide about topics in your industry? What common terms relate to your products and services? And are your competitors gaining ground using specific terms? And finally, can you correlate a service or product to an industry challenge or pain? And once we've done some of this thinking, then we go and we confirm those assumptions with customer interviews. And so if you've not taken the time to do a lot of kind of just customer outreach on a regular basis, this is a really good time to do it, because if you reach out to existing customers or even prospects at times and ask them about, as you start to think about what this content pillar may be about, they're going to really help you hone in on some of those questions to ask. So as we continue research, we then start to identify your top target keywords. Now, these are the terms that really matter to your business and the ones that we want to build on. We're going to build our actual content pillar around. Then we're going to match those target keywords to discover how they're used by potential buyers and by your competitors. From there, we define primary and secondary keyword clusters that will be used to develop the actual content pillar. So in step 2, we want to start looking at optimization. And by optimization, I mean SEO optimization. So there's a number of things we're looking for here. So one, we want to understand the company's visibility needs. So we'll do research into seeing exactly how traffic comes to your site today and how that could be manipulated. We want to evaluate the keyword traffic across your industry as well to understand, how much of share of traffic do you get today versus your competitors. We want to analyze the top rankings for your company and all of its competitors to really kind of just see how you rank in comparison. We want to map focus keywords and secondary keywords to all this information. So we start to kind of put together that map of where we want to go with this. Finally, we want to map and analyze the potential rankings. So I mentioned the SERP rankings before. So there's those, dozen or so different things that we can basically have our search engine results be optimized for. So things like videos or answer boxes. That's where we want to start taking those keywords and saying which are really competitive SERP rankings that we can own, and we start to put a plan around those. Finally, as we start to do the drafting and publishing, we want to make sure that all this stuff is continually thought through with optimization. So optimization is not just a one-stop shop in this process, but it's going to be something we're going to have to hit and look at to make sure that all the content being developed is basically being thought through. And finally, we do want to optimize our things like URL structure, image names, and metadata. So all of these things are the SEO side of what we're going to do as we're putting together content. Third phase is the strategy. And in the strategy phase, we're going to begin to define the form and function of the content pillar itself. So this is going to include things like, what is the overall topic of the content pillar? What are the keyword-based page names? What are we literally going to call these things? And those pages are really important because we want to make sure that things like H1 tags and all that kind of stuff speak specifically um, to what the keyword plan is telling us. The next is going to be page order and hierarchy, and essentially the content structure. And it's important to create a logical hierarchy to ensure that like the whole pillar together really holds together as a cohesive and informative section. Remember, we're not trying to create things that are just good for Google. We're trying to make sure that we're creating things that are good for all of your users and actual people that are visiting the site. So what topics are core concepts? What supporting content is required to support building this journey out for people, and how much content is really required to make a difference. In some industries, you may find that there's not all that much content that's necessarily needed to be created. And so, many times we can get away with like an 8-page pillar. Sometimes it can be much, much larger and more robust. It just depends on the competition. So step 4 is really the content development and technical production phase. Now in this stage, we write and optimize all the content, ensuring the primary and secondary keywords are used judiciously, appropriately, and strategically. And an essential part of production is making sure that the technical SEO has been applied. Again, we define the proper folder structure, page names, metadata descriptions for each of those pages, along with image alt tags, captions, and other behind the scenes search engine cues. And then we build and audit the content pillar pages both before and after it's been launched so that we can make sure that that pillar is actually doing what we hoped it would. So at this point, you're likely thinking, this all sounds great, but where do I get the resources to develop the content that I need to be effective? Well, the answer lies in repurposing quality content that may have never even been intended for the website, but that speaks quite well to the specific challenges, pains, and a solution configuration that your prospects are looking for. Many times your sales and customer support teams have answered many of the key questions customers and prospects are searching for. We just need to find where that information lives today. And so, when we find, I should say that what we find that, when you treat your prospects like customers, they're going to walk away more educated. They're going to be a better informed buyer who's truly ready to engage with the sales team. So we encourage you to really judiciously and smartly give away more of your value up front in terms of content, just to draw people in. So, many organizations already have the right kind of content to build traffic. So you don't need to feel like this is all stuff that you have to create fresh and new. It's, many cases, it's going to things that you could leverage are kind of stuck in PDFs online, but they're buried. Either customers can't find them, they're not really showcased very well, or the search engine doesn't really read the content in a way that's going to help you get people to that. So many times it's just unburying content that's stuck in PDFs. A great thing here is like a solution sheet or a data sheet. Many times those things are rich with information about how-tos and that answer questions. Um, Again, also think about PDFs that are hidden behind a paywall or even a customer service window. There is so much rich content that as long as it doesn't like detract from your, IP. So say you sell a software product and you want to make sure that you could show more of that to a prospective buyer. why not pull some of that information that's behind the customer service desk and make sure that that's out on the web, because it's answering the initial questions that a customer, a very technical buyer potentially, might be asking in the early stages of exploration. I would also look to internal training materials. These are often rich with how-to information that people are often looking for. Again, sales material and collateral. This could include things like printed books or pamphlets or even presentations. So when you can tap into these resources after completing your research and optimization phases, then you're really going to get a better idea of how much fresh content really needs to be created versus editing and rewriting for this new pillar format. And again, some pillars we can do like an 8 or 12-page pillar. Some take more, but again, when you're trying to define what that's going to cost to put together, it really depends on what you have to start with and how much editing needs to go on with that particular piece of content. So let's look at the anatomy of a content pillar. And we're going to do this by actually looking at a real client that we have worked on a number of pillars with. We actually have probably 6 or 8 content pillars across this website over time that we've developed. But we had one particular time where we really went very much full force on creating these. So we're going to kind of learn how we turned the topic of statistical process control, or what's called SPC, into a magnet for attracting high-value leads for this global brand. So Infinity QS is a global leader in quality management software for manufacturers. The company's solutions are based on enabling better, more effective use of statistical process control, or SPC, which is an industry standard methodology for measuring and controlling quality during the manufacturing process. The keyword SPC drives about 90% of the organic traffic to the Infinity QS website. And we have always been keenly aware of the value of these SPC keywords, related keywords. And so much of the site has always been designed to support that traffic. However, through Refactored's ongoing SEO program, we realized that competitors had begun building their own SPC related content onto their sites. And with those additions, they were starting to erode Infinity QS's lead in the SERPs and eating into our share of organic traffic. And as you can understand, we've been working on really optimizing this site for close to 4 years. So we really needed to get a handle on the terms that we cared most about and make sure that we could go in and re-own our position. So as you know, content is expensive to create, but after brainstorming with the Infinity QS team, Refactor realized that they really had all the content they needed to go to a new place. So the catch was, we had to just figure out where and how to best use that. So the research and knowledge was locked away in unsearchable formats. So it was a published book, a PowerPoint presentation. We had a bunch of training manuals, and there was an online training module that we could use. So a set of content pillars really was the perfect way to surface all this valuable content and add significant keyword gravity to their already strong site. So, what we did, so as we're creating the pillars, we're going to kind of walk through that process here. So Refactored and our SEO partners at Pico Digital worked with Infinity QS to conduct keyword research and analyze the competitor keyword strategies. That information provided the primary and secondary keyword list that we needed to help to develop that initial content pillar. Then the Refactored team developed a strategy for 4 new interactive multi-page resource sections. Now this includes what was called Modernizing Shop Floor SPC, the Definitive Guide to SPC Charts, SPC 101 for Manufacturing, and SPC Glossary. Now these terms were not pulled out of thin air. These were actually the types of things people were looking for. They're looking for a thing like a guide, or they're looking for like 101 information, or they want to know what a specific term means. The better we can answer those queries, the better this and more powerful these pillars are going to be. So when we got into the production and strategy phases, we again by updating and revising Infinity QS's existing material and repurposing and restructuring it to fit the proposed content pillar sections that we were planning for their site. We also added new content to ensure that the sections were useful, filled in any gaps in the story that was not provided by the existing content, and we provided visitors through that coherent and kind of cohesive experience where they can come in, find a very, very deep landing page within the site, and then they can learn about the topics that they're needing most information about. We also wove in fresh information about how Infinity QS software can help make the most of their SPC data. And that is where we started to just move people into the conversion funnel from that point forward. The company's repurposed material added about 248 keywords across the site, and provided kind of highly relevant, useful resources for customers seeking that information. Now, altogether, with these 4 pillars, the new content we added was about 63 pages of content and about 40 to 50,000 new words on the website. So that's a lot of content. So, again, not all content pillars are created the same, and not all of them need to be as large as this is. It's just that this particular brand had so much authority on this particular topic, we really wanted to make sure we could own our leadership position. So I'm just going to kind of show you what some of this looks like. So these are, and you could take these, or I'm going to show pictures of each of the 4 pillars, and you'll get a sense of the variety of what we put together. This is the Modernizing Shop Floor SPC page. It's about 10 pages of super relevant information. It's keyword rich, but if you look at the content, it doesn't feel like it's been stuffed full of keywords, correct? I mean, you see spots for videos, you see like little flip over objects in here, so it's visually appealing and kind of interesting to work with. We've got calls out that really say that, how can you not afford an SPC solution? And we have a nice video that really goes into, often standing still is one of the worst things you can do other than make change. And then as you get into some of the deeper content, which is really focused around specific pains, things like reducing waste and scrap, reducing defects and recalls, improving productivity. These are challenges, but they're also super positive messages. And so when you get into these subpages, again, we continue this theme with videos, quotes, and then screenshots and specific examples that really give that user a really quality experience when they're learning about the topic. Another one, and this has been probably the biggest power driver, is when people are starting to look for SPC solutions, they're actually asking about charting. And so they really want to know, how do these charts help me make my manufacturing process better? And again, this was locked in this book that had been written by the COO of the company, and but had just never, is out of print now, and it just hasn't really been leveraged. And so when we found that we had this resource available and it matched what people were searching for, we were like, this is amazing. And this has truly been amazing, because people, what they provide is they provide the answer to how these charts help them make the change, but then what their tool does is say, you don't need to worry about all these charts. Our software actually provides you a better, more seamless way to get to that information. As opposed to having to run a chart, we can actually just tell you what's wrong. And so you bring people in on that information that they're looking for, and then we kind of surprise them and say, this actually can be really easy to achieve if you just look at it a different way. The other thing we do in all of our SPC sections is we've actually included a drift bot, which speaks on specific SPC topics. And what we're having that bot do is engage that user to say, okay, was this helpful? Can I share additional resources with you? Can I get you to, sign up for a demo? All of those kinds of things are handled by that bot to make sure that we don't get a person that reads just about a specific control chart and then leaves the page. And so this is, think about taking a couple 100-page book. We actually boiled down the really essence of that book into about 30 pages of highly relevant and keyword-rich content. The next one was an SPC 101 Learning Center. And this was 14 pages of super relevant information, but it's really the 101. It's the why you need it, it's how it works, it's what are the different processes and controls, what are the charts that are used, what are some examples, all those kinds of things that really help ground that user. In the manufacturing industry, there are a lot of companies that have not taken this step to digitizing these processes, and they use a lot of paper. And so there is a learning process just to help people along the way. And a resource like this, like a learning center, really can help set the stage for a potential buyer to help them understand what the value of your product or service is. And finally, an SPC glossary. And this is, I would say, kind of an old SEO technique, but depending on your industry, a lot of people really have not taken advantage of making sure that there's a good glossary available. This also gives you places to add additional links within content. So if you're talking about something like an acceptance number or capability or what tolerance is in your copy, you can link and cross-link between these pages, and that's going to help Google find its way around your website. But again, we're doing this for people. People may not understand, what T distribution is or tampering, and so they can go in and they can find those resources within this search engine. So, really, Infinity QS's new content pillars, they were not just created for SEO and content marketing. These were carefully prepared to be relevant, clear, and have a good overall fit within the existing site. It's really important to put the new material where it could be found easily, but where it won't overwhelm users that are not necessarily looking for that. So again, it's striking that balance from creating content that's for the search engine and also making sure that we are not going to disrupt a normal buying journey. So we had game-changing results, and we also saw a lot of deep savings as we were putting this together. And this is something we find with almost any content pillar we create. So these highly engaging content pillars that we've put together for Infinity QS produce both immediate but also sustained success across the board. Some of the things that we saw were increased keyword rankings, increases in organic traffic. We boosted visitor time on page to more than 4 minutes. We increased conversions, and we reduced the need for paid search to get the customers into the funnel, which allowed us to focus those resources in other areas, which is always great. All these improvements resulted in a 6-figure savings for Infinity QS. And the most important is the pages demonstrated that Infinity QS is invested in the learning and success of its customers and dedicated to serving them at every stage of their journey. These are just a few of the charts pulled out of Google from a first 1 month, month-over-month results. So in that first month, Infinity QS marked upticks in its SEO metrics. But in just a year, organic traffic increased 16.97% year over year and added 72 keywords to the top 4 to 10 positions. So another way to look at this a little more clearly is we saw a rise of goal completions of 291% off of these new pages. 325 new keyword rankings were added. We saw an increase of 248 keywords site-wide that we are now visible for across the web. We had 13 keywords in the top 3 positions because of this content. And we saw a 366% increase in organic sessions. And finally, the one I love to see is time on page, because this tells me that people are interested in this content. It's not just for the search engine. When people come and visit and they start to browse around and they are looking for other things to do and extend their visit to 4 minutes and 9 seconds, that's exactly what we want to see. So we really believe in building content that builds your brand. As a marketing leader, you already know the value of great content. And so carefully and strategically crafted content pillars really do address multiple marketing goals for you. But they're doing it in a fraction of the time and expense of many initiatives. And so, a lot of these kinds of efforts can be put together. A normal content pillar can take about 6 to 8 weeks to put together. And so that may look like a longer cycle, but it's not as long as building a new website. These are like building smaller microsites. They're very, very focused on content and research and making sure that you're building and writing the right content. Um, but the thing is that, as a marketing leader, you understand the value, but you may also be overwhelmed with just keeping up with existing content programs. And that's really where an experienced partner can help you. So if you're kind of ready to supercharge some of your SEO results, one of the things I wanted to mention is that we are providing a no-risk SEO audit so that you can understand your opportunities for building a content pillar or two into your site. There's only a very small amount of information we need to get going, and one that's going to be your name, your URL, top 3 keywords, and 3 competitors. And with just that information, we can go out and search Google. We can look at some of those rankings with competitors, and we can help you kind of understand what some of your opportunities might be in building out a content pillar. We're also going to want to understand what your goals are, and that's something we can talk with you about during this audit. Where are the areas that you feel like you're slipping against competition, or do you have an aggressive competitor that is spending a ton in SEO, and maybe it's very, very difficult for you to match that? This can many times be sort of a way to combat a large player in your industry that maybe has more resources than you to create lots of content. As opposed to worrying about creating lots of content, we just say, let's carve out this sliver. Let's own this space. And if we can help you define how much traffic sits in that little defined space, we can really help you make massive changes in what you're doing with your marketing program. So with that, I am going to stop for a minute and to see if we've got any other questions. And so I will pause, and hopefully this has been good for you guys as well. So it looks like our first question, so we've got, does the technique work in the nonprofit space? Now, of course, the example we showed here is more of a B2B. Like we work with B2B, a little bit of B2C, but mainly B2B, large associations and nonprofits. This certainly does work in a nonprofit area. One of the ways that you will find how this can function is if you are, say, a association or a nonprofit that has a specific mission that you're trying to help to achieve or help see happen in the world. Many times there's people that are searching on that term. So you can create content that talks about how you answer those challenges in the world. And you can build pillars that really address like the core differentiators of how your organization actually helps to do that. So I do think that though most of our content pillar work has been done in the B2B space, I would say we have one under development right now for CSU College of Business, and so that's in the education space, and we're helping them market their MBA programs. So again, in that particular case, more of a nonprofit educational space, but we are leveraging their high rankings for their MBA, some of the new technology that's out there for how people can interact during a time of COVID especially, and really, really making the best use of that. So certainly this is where the strategy and the marketing strategy really comes into play, is these techniques, if you can see what your customers need to know about in your topic areas and we can address those, you're gonna be in a great spot. So I got a second question, more about cost. So, what does a content pillar cost to create? Really, this one's a little bit more difficult because, again, I think this comes from that audit. We can help you better assess kind of how much content might need to be created or found to make a difference. But what I can tell you is that a 8 to 10 page content pillar project where we go in, we do the research, we structure all of that, help you figure out what that content pillar should be about, help you write that content, which includes interviewing SMEs at your organization and so forth, and then the actual development and writing and the optimization of that content. And this is without building in your site because there's so much complexity in how people want to get that done. But basically going from research through content development that's ready to go to your website. Many times a project like that can be somewhere between about $15,000 and $20,000. So if you think about the cost of, say, a short video or an extensive ebook or a couple of pieces of collateral, that's the kind of project size we're talking about. But the way I would put content pillars into a frame of reference of value is, as a not the videos and things like that can't be used long term. We often use videos in our content pillars, but a content pillar is not a one-time, or though it's a one-time cost, your overall benefit is going to happen over time. Um, as you saw with the example with Infinity QS, we saw an immediate rise in our rankings, but that continued as Google found more and more of those pages, and more importantly, people were engaging with that content. And so that doesn't stop at the end of the project. That actually is going to continue on, and that is the whole point of a content pillar, is we're trying to structure content that's for humans, that's useful, and that's going to help them kind of understand the value of your brand. So do I have any other questions out in the crowd? Give it about 20 or 30 seconds here. Well, it looks like we pretty much have covered all the questions that are out there. I would just say again, if you're interested in an audit, certainly we will reach out with some more information. We'll let you know about your participation in helping to do that. But if you're needing help with any kind of digital experience, certainly reach out to us here at Refactored. We would love to have the opportunity to work with you, and would look forward to talking with you about that. So again, thank you for spending some time with us to learn about content pillars. You will be receiving a recording of this session and also the companion ebook. So thank you. And again, I'm going to give you about 14 minutes of your day back. So thanks again. Bye-bye.